Frank Clayton along with John Riley today, and this is our inaugural visit of many that we're going to help enhance your practice in 2026 with. This is basically going to be a blueprint of 2026 because what we've done is we've listened to docs, and myself being a former clinician, understand where the pain comes from. And we've put together this series of webinars to address all that. And my guest today, as I said, John Riley was a part of my team actually. 15 years ago in my practice, I needed some help with marketing, some directions, some strategic overview, and wanted to bring along somebody that knew more than I did. And John is that person. We're happy to have him here. He's been doing this for 30 years, 25 in dental. He's the VP of marketing for Amplify360. I know the company well because I had used Dental Post. I used Illumitrack. I had a membership plan in my office for many, many years, and they refined that. Very simple. We're going to talk about all that this year and more. It's going to be hard to pack in one episode, but I promise you, you're going to get a lot out of today. And John is ringside with me again. John, great being here. I appreciate you coming on.
Oh man, Frank, this is like the band is back together.
Yes, yes, it is.
So I'm very excited to be here and to do it, especially with you. And so thanks for having me. And this is gonna be a good time.
Yeah, it's going to be one where you really don't have to think that hard because all the dentists I know, including myself, have gone through this, whether it's PPO navigation, whether it's marketing, scheduling, things like that, optimizing, just things in the practice.
Team stuff, all kinds of stuff.
All kinds, which, we all have. So I want to get it started and get right to it because we've only got about 30 minutes today. That 2025 personally was a big year for me. I sold my practice, started a scratch practice in 2002. Thank you. You were there for the last 10 years. And again, you helped me optimize it for the sale, which is just one of the many things we're going to talk about. But I'm here to help people understand that I've been where you've been. I've walked along with John on this to learn. And not only and John, you brought stuff to the practice, but I love to learn from others because you see under the hood of many practices. Mm-hmm. So I would pick John's brain on, and I did this with everybody that I assembled, my team with, the pain points or what you see in your industry. And John and I are going to talk about some of this stuff today. It's lower reimbursements, it's higher overhead, it's teams that are stressed out, it's employees that won't show up for work, it's motivation, leadership. John, I could go on and on.
On and on. Yes.
But tell me some of the things that, things that you've seen in the past, but what we want to do is set up 2026 to be better. Get rid of some things.
Oh my, there's so much to unpack here, but if you look at there's an actual great article right now that came out. It comes out every year from the ADA, and it says the number one stressor for doctors today, guess, insurance it is that insurance hits the top spot, and insurance is not even close to number two. Insurance is so far above the stress of everything else in a dental practice. Why is that? Well, it's the insurance companies are limiting the quality of care that doctors can provide. Therefore, they have to run their practice totally different than what they've been trained in. Coist, Dawson Spear, Pankey, Mish, whatever it might be, whatever continuum the doctor might just thrive after, is now they have to run their practice completely different. And so insurance is one of the giant leaps that they feel like they can never get through. But we're going to talk about these on most of these episodes.
And it comes up, and I can tell listeners that I started taking scratch start. So I started taking insurance. I did everything. I did thirds. I did root canals. I took every plan available to get things started.
I bet you that was just what you went to dental school for, right?
It was stressful in a different way because it's like, here, put bread on the table. Do this. And I can tell you, as your practice evolves, independent of what practice stage you're at, you will see that if you fill your plate enough, you can start taking things off. And this
Right.
has an influence on the schedule, on your stress, on your day to day and burnout. And so I did. And as John was talking, the insurance was so heavy that I started peeling it off. We'll talk about that because there's a strategy to doing it. But every time I peeled a layer, there was a little bit of relief because
Mhm.
I felt shackled with PPO.
Shackled is a good word.
And it's quite apropos here because we all went to school for God knows how long, poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into the investment of being a dentist, and yet you're controlled by someone who is looking at a spreadsheet and really is making these decisions not based on the best patient care.
Right.
And that's frustrating. And I know every dentist here that's done it, and every dentist that has dropped it feels relief from it. It's almost like a happy
Absolutely.
divorce where you're happy to take off that plate. We're going to talk about it, but I can tell you, Judd, you're right. That is the number one thing that drives us crazy.
And there's so many more things. There's team issues. Like we see teams struggling all the time of how to find good teammates, right? So leadership, right, to lead the teams, and you're just a fabulous tool and a resource for that, to help doctors to become even better leaders. And then ultimately, is it the team finding good teammates? That's a giant one today. And then there's a plethora of other things. It's like which technology to stay up with. How do I know what's the best profit area or profit focus that I should focus on, in the next 12 months? Because 2026, brother, has the ability, if it's applied well, to be the best year ever. If doctors do things intentionally to be able to really make their own practice the way that they want to, what they've dreamt out about dentist school. And here's one thing I always say is that dentists today are waiting for a lot of them, not everybody, but a lot of them are waiting for someone else to help guide them to be able to, what is it going to take to be able to make my practice great? But they're not taking that first step. Well, Doc, I'm excited that you're listening because you're taking the first step to be able to say, how do I really make 2026 the best year ever and not have the same year I had in 2025 or 2024? Or how do I even make 2026 the practice that has the most ideal patients, the patient base, so that I can do the treatment coming out of Coyce, Dawson, Sphere, Pankey, whatever, all of those. This is where it's exciting because this series is series of episodes that we're going to be doing is really going to bring light to that. And I'm excited to partner with you on that.
Yeah, I love it because, as I sat there as a new dentist, and we have new dentists listening, you go, how is this attainable? You have dentists in the middle of their career going, I've got so much going on, and I call it plate spinning, where you're spinning this plate and you're spinning this plate. How can I even do that? Well, John just answered. We're gonna take it step by step because it's the old adage of how do you eat an elephant? It's these small action steps that you do that get you towards the end. Right now, I would bet most of you listening have some sort of burnout, and we're going to address that because dentistry is going to be stressful anyway. But taking things away from what makes it stressful, it's not going to be stress free. There's no job stress free. John, if you find it, let me know. And give me a scratch off and a pack of pork rinds.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
we'll split the lottery winnings. That's the only stress free thing that I know. But I know the dentists listening because I've been there and I've wondered how the heck am I going to even get through this? Well, John and I have laid out a plan for this year. And so the series of things we're going to talk about, we want you to think in little bits and pieces of this is what I'm going to take away. Because this is no different, John. The classic is Friday, Saturday, the dentist goes to CE, comes back gung home, comes home Monday, Tuesday, wants to implement. By the eighth patient and the fourth phone call or the 16th hygiene check by Wednesday, you're too damn tired to implement anything.
Right.
And I
right.
know these people know what I'm talking about because I used to talk to my colleagues. We're all in that. So I want your help, John, in doing what you did with my practice to tell them, how did we do this? How did we address it? What action did we take to get this done?
Absolutely. Well, you just nailed it too, brothers. Where doctors come out of CE and they come back just fired up, and they get back and they're like, okay, we're going to change the culture. Well, for the next 3 weeks, they apply it to their morning huddle. They do these things, but after the third week, the doctor goes, "Oh, we're good. It's a part of the system now." And then the fourth week, the team goes, "Wait, the doctor's not asking about it, so it must not be important to the doctor anymore. So we're not going to do it." Oh, thank the good Lord for that, because now I can get back to what I was doing. And it happens all the time. I've evaluated over 1,000 practices. This is a common trait amongst people. So we'll talk about accountability and talk about all kinds of different things.
And you know, John, this was never brought up in dental school. I learned something called the Krebs cycle. Now it's called the TCA cycle, where we would memorize things. And I thought in my head, wouldn't leadership and wouldn't, you know, classes on finance, just reading a P&L, wouldn't that be more valuable than learning chemical reactions? So
absolutely,
you get out
basic business elements to where they don't have to guess, or they don't have to wait for their good buddy that owns a really high-end hot dog stand to understand, to teach them how to do it. You know?
Yes.
That's not the way.
it is so true. And it was frustrating because I had worked in corporate before I went to dental school. So I'd learned a few, and it was non-dental. So you learn some things, and then you go to dental school and you go, well, if I'm going to borrow $1 million, where's the, you know, the structure on leadership, or how can I even put this into motion? Well, they really don't. 4 years and you do your thing and you get out, and the bank gives you just enough, you know, just enough rope. And you sit there and go, well, what's next? I don't know a thing about leadership. You know, and you do this all on your own. But like you said, you take the CE courses, you learn, and you add to your tree as you grow. We're going to try to help you add to your tree and take away the things that cause the stress that weigh the branches down, because that can overburden any system.
Right.
Whether it's yourself. We're going to, John, later in these episodes, we're going to talk about addiction. We're going to talk about divorce. I've got specialists coming on dental that this is their world, because it exists in all of what we do. These stressors drive other things, which may not be the best things in your life. So our job is to clean this up, to help you make some action to clean it up, to get you in the right direction. But 26 is going to be the year that you guys do it, because there's no better. John, what are they going to start? Are we going to start with dropping PPOs, or where do you want to start?
Yeah, is it because it hits the majority of doctors out there? Doc, if you're a fee for service practice, I applaud you for being here, but do not tune out, because even though that we're talking about insurance does not mean that we're not talking about your practice. Okay, so that's number one. But my recommendation is that we talk about insurance. And why? Because if we keep with insurance, it's not really your practice. I'll tell you a story a little bit later about Dr. Sammy in Connecticut, that he called me up. He was so tired. He's ready to sell his practice after 35 years in a massive pancake doc. And he was wanting to do full arch dentistry, but he couldn't do it because of the limit of the insurance. And so until we get rid of that insurance bubble, or at least start on that path, it's not going to happen in 6 months. It's not going to happen in 7, 8 months, or 9 months, or 10 months, or 12 months. It could, but most of the time, oftentimes it's about 18 to 24 months to be able to get out. But there's a strategic process. It's not because you threw up your hands and you did it. So my recommendation, Frank, is that let's get into the meat and potatoes of what it takes to get out of insurance, and really what is the biggest, kind of a path instead of the narrow path, which is where we ultimately have to go down, because many doctors don't want to do it. Well, actually, we're going to find out here in a second is that, well, actually, I'll share it right now. 49% of doctors are getting out of some type of insurance as of 2025, according to the ADA, a Q3 report that they put out. 49.9%. Again, that's an ADA statistic. Here's the thing. I actually think it's larger than that. Why? Because if the ADA is doing that, if saying that, we know the pressures that they get from the insurance companies. So if they're saying that, it's a bigger number, in my humble opinion. That's again me speaking, not anybody else, but that's me speaking, saying if that's the case, then Doc, if you've never thought about it, or if you thought about it but never done anything, let's start you on that path, to get down that narrow path, but let's make it wider, because now this puts you in connection with a ton of other doctors that are doing it with you.
And I totally agree. I did the same thing. And so what you're saying, John, is if you look at marketing as a 30,000-foot view, and this is what we want to do, we want to drop PPOs. There's another lever that says, okay, in time, and as you graduate that, you may have to step up more promotion, advertising, more detailed 5,000-foot things that correspond with that. We're not saying go in and drop it today and then, next Monday go, where are all my patients? John helped me transition this, where I knew it was going to drop some PPOs. And then we filtered in some more marketing. We enhanced some website stuff. We also tightened the sieve of patients leaving out the back door, which then in your mind, you think, well, I'm losing 40% of patients.
Right.
Yes, I did. And it was wonderful, because those were the patients that I didn't want. So when John mentions, if you're a fee-for-service practice and you're listening to this, let me tell you that the last 10 years of my practice, I was fee-for-service. And what John and I did was enhance even more the patients that I wanted. And the beauty of it was, as I told you earlier, I took root canals and thirds off my plate. I even honed it down to exactly what I wanted to do. Specialists loved me because I referred out so much.
Right.
And we will John, we're going to talk in another episode about bringing a specialist on to recapture some of that, which I did, and I can share with you guys. But the beauty of then transitioning from no PPO to fee for service is then you have, you're up at 99+% collections. You're not dealing with insurance companies. There's a lot of major stress. You can then focus on employees and leadership a little bit more, and more patient presentation, which leads to bigger cases, because I'm not rushed, because I'm not checking 4 hygienists and working one-tooth dentistry.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna. You said something too about marketing, and I want to stop for just a second and talk about marketing in general. It's not just what we do, but it's what most. Well, it's actually what not most, but what every doctor does at some level. And I've had countless doctors. This is like the epidemic within dentistry today, and which is this. I had a doctor at Chicago Midwinter about 3 years ago. Be at Chicago Midwinter here shortly, but I was at Chicago Midwinter, and a doctor walked by and said, "Oh, I don't need marketing." And I said, "Oh, then that's great, because you're now 100% fee for service." And he goes, "No, that's the problem." And I said, "Well, tell me about it." And he said, "Well, the problem is I'm 100% or 90% PPO ridden, and I've never marketed ever." And I said, "Well, let me ask you a question." And he says, "Yeah, what's that?" And I said, "Well, what's your production?" And he gave it to me, and it was a little over 2 million. Okay. And then I said, well, "What's your collection?" And he goes, "Well, that's the problem." And I go, "What's that?" And he goes, "It's actually around 1.3 million. Okay. So he's writing off over $700,000. And I said, "So cash flow is probably pretty tight for you." And he said, "Absolutely it is, because that's why I want to get out of dentistry. I don't know what to do." Another case like this. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to give you I just put on my handy dandy calculator. I always do this. Is I take out your calculator, type in 403,000, doctor, and then divide that by 12. 403,000 is the average single doctor, what they're writing off every single year. Now, doctors all the time say, so this is a classic statement. They say, "Oh, I don't ever look at production because that's a fake number." It's a fake number. I don't look at it. I only look at collections. I understand the principle about what they're saying, but it's not fake at all. Why? Because if it was fake, you wouldn't have to do the production. You wouldn't have to have the team. You wouldn't have to have the extra operatories. You wouldn't have to have the extra supplies to do the extra. In this case, the doctor I was sharing with you that I met at Chicago Midwinter is that he was doing over $700,000 of extra work to tap into that 1.3 million. And I asked him, I said, "Would you rather work fewer days, fewer hours, do little over, let's say 2.1 million in collections, but not have to work so hard because you have a better patient and you're not writing off 40, 50% of your overhead?" And he goes, well, yeah, I just don't think it's obtainable. It's like, well, glad we met because that's our core, right? Now there's many ways that you can get out of PPOs, but there has to be a system. It's not just I'm calling up the insurance company, I'm getting out, because what you just said, Frank, also too was 40% of your practice was had left the practice. Now, when we look at now most doctors now right now, the hair on the back of their neck are standing up, and I could never do that. That's 40% of my revenue. That's not the case. Here's why, is that we've created a software. This is not a pitch or anything. We've created a software to be able to help doctors to be able to facilitate what's the best PPO, when, how to do it, when they should drop it, if their fee schedule is not higher than their PPO by over 30%. Now, if back in your case, when you said, okay, John, I think it's gonna be over 40%. Well, great. We're going to get your fee structure over 40% of what your PPO that you're dropping. So your fee for service schedule is going to be 40% higher. And they go, well, why would you do that if it's only 5% of my patients? You hear it all the time, right? But here's the thing, is that the reason why you do it is not for now, it's for the future. Because if you don't raise your fees, you're not going to be able to get out of PPO doctors, because now the patients that stay, the 60% that stayed in your case, right? Or in most practices, it's 15 to 30%, but it's a matter of 15 to 30% of the patients leave, but 70 to 85% of the patients stay. Now, here's the key. You can't afford to lose 15 to 30% of your collections. If you do it right, you won't. I want to make sure that's very clear. You're not going to lose 15 to 30% of your collections. You're going to lose 15 to 30% of your patients. That what I would say is that you're enabling them, doctor, right now. I call it the why in the road. The why in the road is this. The why in the road is you're enabling them to stay on the same path. Right now, it's a straight path for your patients. They're just continue to come in, accept treatment or not accept treatment, and come in and get very little amount of dentistry done because of what insurance is limiting the quality of care that you can provide, doctor. Okay, so that's the straight path. What I want to get them to is the why in the road. The why in the road is stop enabling them to have the very best clinical doctor on the planet, but paying the cheapest amount of dental fees for the visit, right? That's what everybody's struggling with. Yep. So what we bring them to is a why in the road. Stop just having this straight path saying, that's all we can do. That's what the insurance companies want you to think, because they don't want you to change anything. Well, I can guarantee you right now that many doctors are doing. You heard the statistic earlier, 49% of doctors are dropping some kind of insurances today. That was the third quarter of 2025. Here's the thing, is that if you bring them to the why in the road on the front office phone call says this, do I want to have cheap dentistry, or am I looking for a clinically excellent doctor, right? Now, if we don't bring them to the why in the road, you're going to be writing off that 40% for the rest of your life. Okay. But if we stop and say, listen, we can actually control the narrative and help the doctors to be able to attract an ideal patient coming in that are looking for a clinical excellent doctor, not just enabling those great patients to accept very little dentistry because they're enabled because you accept a PPO. The second you stop accepting a PPO, if you have great goodwill with the practice. So doctor, if I'm talking with you and you've been in business for 10, 15, 20 years, and you have a lot of goodwill and you go, man, my patients love me. Okay. In general. And if you say to me, John, all you have to do is get a good patient in the chair. That's all I care about, because if I do that, then it's up to me and I'll take great care of those patients. If that's you, doctor, now what you're saying is that you have the ability, you have a lot of goodwill in your practice, but you're just, and the fear is real. I promise you that. The fear is so, isn't it, Frank? Because like when you started dropping PPOs, the fear is real.
John, just talking about it, I can, a visceral response to that, because it's a leap of faith. And I sat there and I knew this, I lived it. And I know some people are listening going, my God, it's like peering over a large building going, I'm going to jump. Well, John was part of my parachute on the jump. I had to jump because in the direction it kept going, I was going to jump without parachute. You know, I was just going to say, I can't handle any of this. And I was either going to sell it, walk away, do something different. And the transition and what John's talking about, was so liberating. At first, it was frightful. It was like that
Yeah,
employee that you know should be dismissed or have an opportunity realignment, is what I like to call it. And for weeks, you fret about it, and then it's done, and it turns out that's a relief off of you. It was the
absolutely.
best thing to let that employee go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
PPO is 10x that employee.
1,000%.
Yeah. Yeah.
1,000%. Well, there's no other doctor, that's no other person, no other doctor, not myself, not you, not Frank, not you, Frank. No one else, doc, is going to make your practice the way that you want it unless you make that decision, right? So I'm excited that you're here. So here's the thing, is that there's a couple other things that kind of wrap around this. Is that going back to your situation, Frank, of 60%? I had a doctor that was so had fear stricken. She was wound up. I love her to death. She's a dear friend of mine, Dr. April Zigley up in Washington. She's just one I would do anything for. We've been working together for countless years, maybe 12, 13 years, somewhere in that. Just amazing time. Well, she called me up and she wanted to finally get out. It was after about 5 to 7 years of sharing with her. This was, again, pre-COVID. And so she finally wanted to get out. Well, she got out as of 2021. Here's the key. When she got out, she thought she was going to have a drop of about 60% of her patients. Well, guess what we did? We made sure her fee schedule was literally nearly 3 times the amount of her cash patients. Okay, so or excuse me, yeah, so her PPO patients were 3 times the cash patients.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is saying her. I won't say that it's the largest PPO out there, right? That everybody says, well, this is my last one. It's big as I can't get out of it. Okay, and we'll call it the big box PPO. The big box PPO said their fee was $600 per active patient. Her fee for service patients now are $1,800 per active patient, right? So she could literally lose up to 66% of her patients and still walk away. 66% of the patients could leave the practice. This is so powerful. $600 per patient versus $1,800 per patient. She could lose up to 66% of her patients and still walk away with the same collections she had the day that she started with us. It started to get out of PPOs.
That seems unrealistic if you're listening and you're knee deep in PPOs, but I promise you what John is saying, I lived it. And I did that. And do you know how good it feels to prep 1 crown and have the next 2 hours to either be profitable, surf Facebook, bury your head and cry, do whatever you need to do.
Right.
And I used to hear this and I used to go, that can't happen. That just can't, because you get locked in that PPO mentality and you must fill the sieve. You must fill more water. And a lot of physicians do this. And
Absolutely.
I learned from them, let's close the sieve, pour, maybe a whole milk in there rather than 2% skim. If you want to do an analogy of patients, PPO patients are skim milk. Fill it up with the richest cream you can. You will soon have a practice that's it. You'll actually like opening the door and go into your practice.
Absolutely.
Which is, it parallels
Dr. Sammy, by the way. And Dr. Frank, right? It's like,
well,
it's what happened.
It's what happened, and it parallels. I can tell you the feeling if you're in the middle of it. Having just sold my practice, and I'm a different phase of my life. The feeling of dropping that PPO and doing things the way I wanted to do them were very similar to retirement, because you're leaving a situation that's created itself and you're jumping into a situation that you've always looked from the other side going, I want to do that. Well, John helped me do that. There are other people along the way that we're going to talk to in this series that helped you do that. And it's not everybody jump at once. It's little bits at a time. And you're never alone doing it.
Right.
John was a vital part, because every question I had was a valid concern. But as he said, he's seen thousands of practices. I thought, when it's you're the only one and you don't know. Well, you ask a resource like John and say, well, what about, should we try this? Well, he's tried it. He's seen it. He's done it. It sounds like a commercial. I don't mean it to sound like an infomercial.
Absolutely. No, but it's true. Is that just like anything? Is that when I talk with doctors all the time, I'll say, listen, are you a professional? And they go, well, absolutely I am. And I say that rhetorically, right? Because I know that they are, and we work with the best. But here's the thing. It's like when Phil Mickelson didn't win him. He's never won a major, right? He never won a major up until 2004. I'm not trying to get into sports here, but Phil Mickelson's such a great story. Is he was number 2 in the world. He had everything, but being number 1 and ultimately being a major winner in golf. And what did he do? He hired a professional. When Tiger Woods fired Butch Harmon, guess who got on the phone immediately and hired him? Number 2, Phil Mickelson. And when this is a great story. When Phil was going into, it was only weeks away from the majors, from the Masters there near you, my friend, there in Atlanta and outside of Atlanta. And what happened is that when Phil said, "Okay, I'm going to hire Butch Harmon," what was his goal? He didn't need to learn how to be a better golfer. He needed to learn what he needed to do to make better decisions on the course. And that's all he hired him for in that 3 weeks. Now, of course, he kept him for a while, of course. And but Phil says, "What do I need to do?" He told him 3 things that he needs to do to implement. Well, do it in this order at this time, and don't do it until you come on the back 9 and you're on the final stretch on the last 9 of 72, and you're coming in, and if you're within 1 or 2 strokes, and you look for these 3 things in Tiger. Right? Look for these 3 things in Tiger, and you're going to start laughing hysterically. That's going to calm you down, and you're going to play your own game. Okay. That was the advice that Butch gave him. And in the end, he ended up winning by a stroke or 2. And at the end, at the press conference, Phil said, someone asked Phil, "Hey, what were those 3 things that Butch told you?" And he says, "I'll never tell."
Exactly. So much is between your ears. I know dentists that are listening have the capacity to do this. We went through dental school. We've hired. We've done all this. There's so much between your ears that if you unlock, it's there. It wasn't a better club. It wasn't this. It wasn't it was right there, and it's always there. But it gets clouded with so much extra clutter. This year, John, we're gonna declutter a lot of dental brains. And we're going to get to the center of it, and we're going to make it happen for a lot of people. And I'm pretty excited about it. There's so much to talk about. We can't pack it all in here, but future episodes, we're definitely going to address things we talked about. We're going to get in more detail. We're going to have other guests on, other dentists on in these areas where people can get tidbits and go, okay, and there will be a light bulb that goes off in your brain that says, aha, now's the time to do it. It may be a year from now, it may be 3 years or a month. Right. But if you listen, it's there. You have the potential to do this. This is not pie in the sky stuff. Utilize like you said, John, I did Pankey, I did Coyce, I did Spear, and I thought, when am I ever going to utilize? Well, you're going to start utilizing it in 2026 because you're going to get rid of the rest of the noise, and we're going to help you do it.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap it up, John, I've already got a question that has come in from a Dr. Rick Fader in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And I'm going to leave this one to you. Where do you see dentistry in 5 years in regards to DSO and individual ownership?
Great question. What a lot of doctors think today is that it's changing. Yes, it's changing, but the private practice, it's not going anywhere. Right? It's not going anywhere. The reason why people think that is like, oh, I just had to give up to the big DSOs, right? You don't. And nor have our doctors done that. And we have single doctors doing $2.5-3 million per single doctor today. Okay. And they're not stopping. They're actually growing. We have multiple doctors doing like 3-4 doctors doing $7-8 million. The reason why I bring all that up is because what does that look like for the near future is important on what you do today. So 5 years from now, you could be in the driver's seat if you choose to be in the driver's seat, or do you want to be in like I always say, go out of the cockpit and go into first class and sit there and drink your wine and let somebody else fly your plane. You can do that, but I don't recommend it because ultimately the flavor of that starts changing.
It is so true. It's that one question begets a whole episode of what we've been talking about, competition. I agree with John, and if you think in abundance and less in scarcity, it's there. You can carve out your niche. Everybody can do it. geography wise, talent wise, yeah, your goal wise. We're
Yep.
going to help you do it along this year. We just wanted to touch on some things. And I just wanted to say thanks, John, for your time on this. I think
Absolutely.
we've opened up so much that I'm going to love exploring and getting to the bottom of. And if we could help one dentist out there, like you helped me, other people helped me along the way. This is what it's all about, you know?
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled to be on here. The thing of it is that there's so many different things that doctors need to do about insurance, as far as a step-by-step process, as far as hiring the right firm, to making sure that you're communicating with your patients properly, raising your fees, really building a culture for practice growth, so that now once you get out, you become that implant or that absolute, excellent clinical family Crown and Bridge restaurant, whatever restaurant, excuse me, practice. Everything that you're doing, as far as the outcome is up to you. And so our goal is ultimately on this series is really to give you the courage to be able to walk through those gates and be able to do those things. We might not give every last little tidbit as far as how to do it, but because there's so much jam packed here. But the thing of it is that I'm excited about this journey with you, Frank, because it's helping doctors really break free of the things that they've never done so.
That's true. That's true. So as you're talking, I'm thinking we're not asking, you don't have to take the first step of action tomorrow. The first step would be create the scaffolding from the overall for the big view. And even if we got you to plan to say, okay, 2026 is going to be the year that I plan to do this, let's set a plan in action, whether it's quarterly, monthly, and then go, like John said, step by step. This is no different than cooking a big meal, where you're putting things in place to all arrive at the same time, whether it's 5 years from now, 3 years from now, that can be worked backwards. I just want you to put it down on paper and say, this is what I want. And then you're going to come back here and listen to John and I, because we're going to feed you the information that you need to start filling in the scaffolding to say,
Right.
I want to do this. I want to, well, as John said, we may not have every tidbit of an answer. We can guide you. But that's what we're here for. And that's what we're going to do on this webinar. John, I appreciate it. I look forward to so many other episodes with you. You've helped me through my career. In career number 2, we're starting 26 off in a wonderful direction with it. And I'm just looking forward to it.
Well, in 2026 is it a great position, Frank, because in 2026 is really going to be all about you taking the controls, Doc. Just like I said, about DSOs aren't going to take over your practice unless you say that you want to. You don't have to. Where it's much like April Zigley that I was just sharing about, is that April, after she got out of that big box PPO, she dropped them. And here's the key: her collections went up in her practice 27%. 27%, and she took off 33 more days in a year. Now, I don't know who you are, doctor, but if that doesn't make you come alive, I'm not sure anybody can help you.
And John, I'm living that. When you told me that when we first started working together, I said, there's no way. I have to work 12 hours a day. I have to do this.
Yep.
And I did. I cut back, and same thing April did, and the same thing the docs here are going to do in 26. Even if we just create an outline or a scaffold of what to do in the future, whether it's Q1, Q2, Q3, we want you to say, this is my plan of action. This is what I want to do, because what John and I plan to do with other doctors that are coming through the webinar is add on to the tree and of value to say, this is where I want to be. And the more feedback you get from us, and the more you can give us, we'll be live on some sessions. We're taking Q&A, and we're here to help, because John's been in many practices. I've been in one like this. So I've been there. I've been in the trenches with you. And now we're going to dig out of the trenches. 26 is going to be the year where, even if it's the smallest step, if it's a step towards your goal, that's where we're going to be.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you, John. You're not only, the 10, 15 years of friendship and helping me dig out of my practice, getting my practice to where it wants, the exit, which we're going to talk about as well. All these things that everybody's going to live in their practice life. I appreciate you helping me along the way, and we're going to help a lot of docs get the practice that they want, not that this is dictated by PPOs and bad patients. We're going to clean the house.
Right. Absolutely. Because there's no other doctor that's going to make the practice like the way they want it, except for the doctor that owns the practice. So Doc, I'm speaking to you. It's your time. I'm excited that you're here, and continue to make that step in that right direction. Because what I would say is that what top doctors do, much like you, Frank, and I'm not just trying to make you feel good, but our top doctors, like Frank, two core things that separate them from everybody else is they make quick, educated decisions. And number two is implement 90% of what they learn. Right? We're not perfect as human beings, but as you implement 90% of what you learn, you're going to take your practice to a whole new level if you're partnering with the right people. And so that's what I'm excited about this podcast, to really help, really guide a lot of doctors to be able to give them the courage to be able to really have that ideal practice, because no one else is going to create it. So that's what this series is about. So Frank, thanks so much for having me, brother.
John, and thank you. And if you all have questions, there's a QR code you can scan on the end of this deck, and John's got his email out there. You're more than welcome to email me. We're going to have some live webinars. We're going to take Q&As. We're going to have small group webinars. We have a lot planned for 26 that is just going to help you dig out of the trenches. So, John, I appreciate it again. Look forward to many more meetings this year. And so long, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Frank.